Well, hello YouTube, and welcome back to the second episode of Broshop. I realized I kind of oversprung one. Today's going to be kind of a second review of the compressor. Now this thing hasn't run in 2 months, and since we did the first review, and down here on the pressure gauge we're still showing 7 bar. So again, we probably lucked out here on this one. Like I said, I'm not a real big fan of Chinese made tools, and we seem to have gotten lucky with this one. So all I can say is I'm very pleasantly surprised with the overall build quality of the machine. And the fact that it's holding pressure for as long as it has. We drew it down quite a bit, you know, testing it out, blowing off the parts of the bandsaw, and so it did a fairly good job of recovering relatively fast. Again, it's a small machine, not much displacement, so it's going to take a little bit longer to recover. But other than that, it recovered quite well. Didn't overheat or develop any major heat problems. So today we're going to blow off some more of the parts. We got to get a wire brush and take off the big chunks and then get off the fines. We're also going to paint the bandsaw and put in a new set of bearings and reassemble the whole thing down in the basement. So we're going to go out here to the garden and do some painting with it and get going on the second episode of Broshop. So here we have the frame of the bandsaw itself. I'm a little out of breath from packing this thing up out of the basement. This thing weighs about, pretty near 100 pounds, somewhere in there, maybe a little more, I don't know for sure, but let me tell you, this sucker's heavy. But anyway, what we did to paint this in the prep, the surfaces that are going to remain unpainted, as you can see, they're not covered up or taped off, but rather what we did is take a little grease and work the grease into the surface of the casting, so that way when the paint goes on after it's dried, all you have to do is take a rag and then just wipe off the area, and then your casting, the machine surfaces are basically untouched and unpainted. If a little paint gets into the threads, that's quite all right, because the paint will act a little bit as a Loctite and maintain the position of the screw once it's run in there. It's not the optimal thing to have, but let me put it to you this way: it doesn't hurt to have a little paint inside the screw threads. Just an additional safety feature, or to keep the screws from breaking out later on. So let me plug in the paint pistol here. We had some difficulties with it. The paint we're using today is, I'll put it down here in the screen down below so you can see what the brand name of it is. We did try it just straight up. It's a little too thick to put on in a spray gun. So what I did is I thinned it out with some acetone. They have some manufacturer specific thinner that you're supposed to use with it, but all we had on hand was acetone. Works fine. And so I thinned it out about 1 to 5, something like that. So 5 parts of paint to 1 part of acetone, and that worked out pretty good for a mix. The other parts are drying quite nicely. We got a few painted up already. I'll do a little walk around here and show you guys the progress on the parts. The wheels that are going on and the guides, they're a little bit too complex to be able to we'd have to disassemble the whole mess, and I'm a little reluctant to do so, because then it requires a complete adjustment and readjustment of the guides and the pulley system. So what Adam's going to do is in his spare time is touch up the guide system and all that stuff, and the tensioner pulley that goes on over here with a paintbrush and do it by hand instead of doing it with the spray gun. Incidentally, the spray gun has a little bit of leak, and I'm going to reach out to the viewership. Let me grab this thing here real quick. This is a HVLP type of gun, and down here is a adjustment screw for the air feed that increases or decreases the amount of air that goes to the nozzle. Now, it's leaking quite badly, and so what I'd like to know from the viewership, because I don't have, this is a flea market find, what do I need to do in order to get this sealed up and tightened up to where it's not losing so much air? I'm at a loss for it. I've never used these things before. I've used the, cheapos from China. You can come on into the picture.
You're going to need to blow that out anyway. So
okay. Okay. Alrighty. So anyway, what do I need to do to make this thing tight again and keep it from leaking off, bleeding off so much air? But anyway, I'm not sure where this thing hails from. There's no maker's mark on it. It just says HVLP onto it. So high volume, low pressure. Other than that, hard to say. It seems to be fairly well made, so don't know if it's from China or where it's from, but these things are pretty much all the same. So it's just a question of, figuring out how they work. But anyway, let's get to painting. So what you want to do when you fire this up, before you make contact with your paint on the surface, make sure you got paint coming out, and then just ease it on in. Then you get good coverage. You don't want to do too fast or too slow. If you do too slow, then you get runs in your paint. And as you notice, I'm painting over the top of these parts that are exposed, and it doesn't stick for one. Now, the other thing is, you want to do it in a hatch pattern, crossing your paint. So then you take the nozzle and then you turn it 90 degrees, and then you can go up and down, because what this does, this turns your stream flat, and so you're getting a different direction each time you turn this thing. So now I'm going to turn it again 90 degrees. Now, as you notice, the compressor's, trying to catch up. It's doing a pretty good job of maintaining pressure. I got to say, for, this gun, it's actually doing a fairly adequate job. So, in the secondary review, this compressor, we're coming up to 7 bars right now. So it's actually doing pretty good in maintaining pressure. And so it's usable for one of these type of guns. Yep, we're still half full. as you can see, it didn't take long to get this sucker painted. Got a little bit of orange peel action going, but there again, it's a machine, so it's not really all that critical if we got a little orange peel in here or not. The other thing is I don't want to get a whole lot of runs in here, but like I said, the paint is really thin, and so it lays down fairly well. The orange peel dissipates after a few minutes in some places. Some places I'm going to have to touch back up again. But the paint goes on fairly nice. Can't really say anything bad about it. It's a brand I've never encountered before. It's something I bought out of eBay. I'm not sure where it's made, but there we go. There's our victim. Our compressor's still struggling, still stroking, and it should be caught up just about any second here. Let's take a look. Yep, should be shutting off any second here. There we go. Yeah. So there we have it. Here's our bandsaw corpus painted, and now we're ready for some of the other parts. You know, some of the bigger parts that are you know, got large surface areas to be painted, like the covers, the wheel covers, and all that good jazz. But I'll spare you the agony. We'll show it, you know, once we've got it all done up. But anyway, that's a wrap for this episode of broshop. We'll do some still photos here and include those at the end of the video here for you guys. You know, give you some close-ups on how this all comes together, how these surfaces clean up once the paint's been wiped off, or the grease with the paint. Yeah. Again, if any of the viewership out there knows how to remedy this air leak down here on the base of the pistol, by all means, put it down in the doobly-doo down below. Be mighty appreciative of any comments that you might have on that in that regard. If there's any other thoughts, comments, critiques, questions, again, put them in the doobly-doo down below. It's always good to hear from the viewers. Be you a subscriber or non-subscriber, it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. But you know, a subscription or a thumbs up will definitely be duly appreciated. So with that, hope you enjoyed the stills, and hope you got a little something out of this episode of broshop, and we hope to see you guys soon in the next episode.